So as you start to use GarageBand for the first time, you really need somebody to show you what each of the buttons does and how to access particular settings and things like that. So let's make a start. In the top left-hand corner of the screen, you will see this icon, and it looks a little bit like a piece of paper with the corner folded over. And if you tap on that, it will take you to the files view, but also it's a way that when you tap on it, it'll save your work. So that's a good one to know about. The next button looks a little bit like this. It looks a little bit like a brick wall. So for that reason, we refer to it as the brick wall button. But actually what it does, I'll just write this down, brick wall button. What it does is when you've got the instrument on the iPad screen, often the instrument covers most of the screen. And if you've got a smaller iPad screen, it covers all of the screen. So occasionally you'll want to be able to see the tracks underneath, all the tracks that you're recording and editing. The way to see those tracks is to press the brick wall button. The next button we use quite a lot is the mix button, and that looks like this. And that represents 3 mixing desk faders. The mix button gives us essentially access to a menu that allows us to select all sorts of different functions. One of the functions you're going to use in the first couple of weeks is quantize, so that's how you get to it. This button, you probably already know what this does, because that is play, so that will start the music playing back. And when you want to stop the music, you press the square to stop. Now once you've pressed the square to stop, the square will actually change, the shape of the button will change, and it will then look a little bit like this. And that means rewind to the start. So often after you've recorded something, or after you've listened to something, you want to listen to it again and check it's right. So often if your music's playing, you'll press stop and then you'll press where that stop button was again, and it'll take you back to the start. It's quite a clever thing they've put it in that place. Now if you make a mistake, then there is a button that you can press, and it looks like that, and that function is undo. But you must be careful, because on this version of iPad GarageBand there is only one level of undo. So in other words, if you get something wrong and then something else wrong, you can only go back once. So work slowly and carefully to start with. And I'd recommend that after every edit, you listen to your music and check it's improved in the way that you want it to. Okay, now if you undo something by accident, you can press the same button, but hold it down just for a moment and then let go, and that is redo. Again, there's only one level of redo, so you've got to be careful with that as well. Now I'll change my pen colour for the next one, change it to red, because this button, you might also know what that button does. When you press the red button, it starts to record. And actually when you press that button, it will give you a count-in. First of all, if you're working in 4/4 time, then it will count in 1, 2, 3, 4 to help you to understand and kind of get in your mind what the tempo of the session is, so that when you start to play, you've got every opportunity to play in time and make it rhythmically accurate. Now to the right of the record button, we've got a button that looks a little bit like a tent, but it's got a line coming out of the side of it. And this is our metronome button. So this button will basically turn off or turn on the metronome. And sometimes that's referred to as the click. Metronome is so important when we're making music, because all the parts, all the musical tracks, if you like, all the different instruments have to be listening to the same pulse for them to be able to play in time together. So it's like a reference point. Now, if when you listen back to your music and you haven't got the click switched on when you record, your music will be all over the place. And if you are using the GarageBand app and you've got the metronome on and it's annoying you because there's this weird clicking sound that just keeps happening, Don't think about it as a weird clicking sound. Think about it as this is something that's helpful that you need to learn how to work with. Because if it's just a frustrating thing, it probably means that your music's out of time and it's not going to be very good when you're finished. And the last one looks a little bit like this. And this is the settings cog. And it's very similar to the settings cog that you've got on your as an app within your iPad. But this one does things that are specific to GarageBand. So, for example, if you wanted to change the tempo of the music, that's where you would go to change it within settings. Okay, so that should be enough of the different buttons within iPad GarageBand to help you to get started.